All right, so I believe that this is going to be the second installment in our ongoing discourse that I'm titling, or titling something like, perhaps, notes towards metapoetics of, that's Fiverr in the background. He's really distracted today. There's a dog across the way whose name is Fred. And Fred's been barking all morning. I don't know what he's so upset about, but Fred's barking is causing Fiverr to bark. And then the funny thing is that when Fred's owner walks by our house and Fiverr's in the front yard barking, then Fred's owner will say, "Hi, Noisy," sort of like ignoring the fact that Fiverr is responding to Fred in the first place. But anyway, all of that is to explain Fiverr's barking in the background. I was going to say that the title of this piece, I believe, is going to be Notes Towards a Metapoetics of Paranarratology 2, Varieties of Rhetorical. Now Fiverr's distracted me and I can't even remember the name. Varieties of Rhetorical Deception in narrative and non-narrative storytelling and or experimental filmmaking. And of course, the reason that we're looking at this image and not watching the Beer Garden, or Stan Brackage's refilming of the Beer Garden as a Child's Garden and the Series C, is because both my, and I'll play something while we're doing this. I may need to adjust the volume on that initially, but I'm going to play a tune called missed-Serioso, which is a Contract and Fee Through Theta's remake of a Thelonious Monk tune, and I won't I think I think the name of that tune should be obvious. There are more mysteries involved in the selection of this particular tune for this particular discussion, but I'll leave those mysteries as a kind of riddle that one could solve as part of one's BRE test or other form of inquiry, and not go on about why I'm selecting that particular music, but. Let's see. So where are we? Oh, yes. So both Regina 7 Barber of NPR and Andy Lutnecker, I couldn't remember his name, but Andy Lutnecker is the original author or auteur of the Beer Garden, which was originally made in 2018 and then remade by Stan Brackage in I'm getting my dates mixed up, and there's a reason for that, because everything is so out of order. But Andy's Beer Garden was originally made in 2002, and then Stan and Fred, not the dog barking next door, Fred Camper, but remade the Beer Garden as a Child's Garden and the Series C in 1991, and we've already talked about why and what that particular film experiment was all about. Designed to show the visual advantages of film over video recording, and because Andy's original Beer Garden, that he made in 2002 was made on video. The reason that I confused it with that date, 2002, with 2018 is because 2018 is the year that the Milwaukee Zoo got a hold of Andy's film, The Beer Garden, and it inspired them to create a beer garden right across from the cages that they held the bears in there in the Milwaukee Zoo, the Zoological Society. And the reason that they did that, and I was reminded of this both by Regina 7 Barber and by Andy Lutnecker, is that the bears really need to fatten up in the fall before they're oh, you know what I really wanted to do was let's stop watching these bears. I'll continue to narrate the story, but let's listen to Mr. Rubioso, and while we're doing that, there we go. And while we're doing that, that'll be the music for this particular version of the Beer Garden, which is Brackich's remake. And okay, so it's Fat Bear Week, and it's October, and apparently, like, the history of human intervention and assistance in fattening up these bears goes way back. So Regina Seven Barber was telling me that the Oktoberfest, which was invented in Hamburg, and as you know, my viewers will recall, Hamburg is the place where the birds leave quickly for elsewhere in the winter. I guess because it's so cold there, and because it's so cold and the birds leave so quickly, in the winter, the good people of Hamburg invented a festival, called Oktoberfest, in which beer and pretzels and other fattening foods were made available for not only the human celebrants, but for the local bears, in order to fatten them up for the winter so that they could survive that period of sleep and weight loss. And that's the actual origin of Oktoberfest, which and I'm just going to leave the commercials in this time, since I've turned off the volume for this particular piece, and Stan Brackich's version is silent, but the commercials don't really respect that silence. Oh, look, they're drinking beer, so that's kind of appropriate. And I don't know if it's really about beer or t-shirts, but in any case, that whole history of Oktoberfest has largely been ignored or neglected or perhaps forgotten. But Regina Seven Barber reminded me of the fact that this is its origin, and that it is Fat Bear Week. And Andy let me know that Andy Lutenecker let me know, and this is what my confusion was all about, regarding those dates 2002 and 2018, that apparently the Zoological Society of Milwaukee, which is famous for its beer, got a hold of the Beer Garden. I don't know if they knew anything about the Fred Kamper and Stan Brackich remake in film form, but got a hold of the Beer Garden sometime in either 2017 or 2018, and it became the inspiration for opening up. Let's skip the rest of the ads because they're getting a little boring. But for opening up a beer garden at the Bear Garden there in the Milwaukee Zoo. So the idea behind this particular beer garden was that, let's see, I think we're onto a different track. This is no longer Mr. Rubioso, and in order to get back to Mr. Rubioso, if we want to repeat that, I've got to escape. Sorry about that, and I didn't. We'll have to view a smaller version of the Brackich, because I had neglected to factor in the fact that Mr. Rubioso isn't a very lengthy piece. So we'll just, in order for me to to facilitate, the repetition of Mr. Rubioso, I'm just going to film from this smaller image of the Brackich's version of the Beer Garden. Sorry, I'm getting the beer and the bears mixed up. Because the Milwaukee Zoo does that too. It's a pun, and I guess perhaps inspired by their viewing and contemplation of The Beer Garden by Andy Lutnecker. In whenever they watched it and decided to open up this beer and bear garden there in the zoo. So we'll have to watch it on this smaller version, and you can see the edges here. There's some of the edges of the frame that we're watching it on. It's not very big, but I don't think it's going to make all that much difference. The idea behind the garden was, to not only like inspire people to, come and look at the bears, but particularly in the month of October, it was, to encourage the zoo goers, to buy beers and pretzels and other kinds of, fattening food for the bears, to fatten them up for the winter. And you're allowed, to bring your beers to the bears, and you can give them as much beer and pretzels and whatever else they have. And this is really only encouraged in those months leading up to winter, so September, but October, October is the festival itself. But September, October, November, if the bears haven't fallen asleep yet, by November. Here's another ad. We'll just go ahead and watch the ad. I had begun to say something about how the ads don't seem to respect the silence of this brackish film, because I noticed that although the film or the video of the film is displayed, in silence, then the ads come back on with sound, and so to experience the silent ads, you have to turn off the volume, which obviously doesn't affect the silent video version of the silent film, but does get the commercials to correspond more to the aesthetics of that silent film era of experimental film that probably began around I don't know, maybe with Maya Deren, I'm not sure, but no, she liked to put music to her films, so it didn't begin with Maya Deren. Some of I guess Kenneth Anger's films could be watched in silence, but I think the only gotta go back to Mr. Rubio. So we've got kind of a lot of things going on here, so I'm easily distracted. I think really the original proponent of film silence was Stan Brakhage, because the early films, even though you couldn't sync sound and they were silent, usually were attended with accompanying music, either piano or a larger orchestral ensemble, and so the idea was that with film that it was always accompanied by some kind of music or some kind of sound. And the idea of film as silent, and as a silent aesthetics really, probably didn't emerge, until I don't know when, perhaps the 1950s or 60s, and as I said, is really sort of the focal point of a certain kind of aesthetics that sort of reinvents the history of early cinema around the idea of silence, even though it never really existed as such, which is interesting and amusing in various kind of ways. Let's see what we get here. Unfortunately, the ads just seem to freeze up at a certain point, so we can't even just let them be. We have to play with them as we're narrating our piece and trying to film whatever is left after the demolition by advertisements of Brackich's version of the there it is, of the bear garden. So in 2018, the Milwaukee Zoological Society opened up this beer and bear garden and encouraged people to, especially in the months of fall and early winter, before the bears go to sleep, to share their food and beverages, and I think they serve wine as well, but really beer is encouraged, because apparently beer is very fattening and good for bears in that period that precedes their hibernation, which isn't a true hibernation, is really like a deep sleep. But I don't know if we really have time to get into all the scientific specificity regarding the distinction of what a bear's deep sleep and for example, a squirrel's hibernation might be. But without doing that, just noting the fact that bears don't really hibernate; they really just go to sleep. We can sort of push on. So I guess inspired by the idea of Oktoberfest, the Zoological Society of Milwaukee opened up this beer and bear garden in 2018, and not only that, but in the month of October, they have a festival, and Andy Lutenecker was telling me about it. But this go back to Mr. Rubioso. But this festival involves not only beverages and all different kinds of beer, all different kinds of varieties of beer, international beers and IPAs and all these fancy beers that they make in and out of Milwaukee are served not only at the beer and bear garden, but also throughout the whole zoological park. And you can wander through the park, and you can drink these wonderful beers and enjoy this Milwaukee version of Oktoberfest, that was, as we have established, was originally conceived in Hamburg, where the birds are quick to leave early for the winter, and for elsewhere for the winter, because I guess it's less cold elsewhere. It's colder in Hamburg. I mean, I don't I haven't done the research on it. I only know what what has been proposed by one of my fellow space-time travel machine builders and creators, whose name slips my mind for some reason. I wanted to say Tim Maudlin, but of course it's not Tim Maudlin, because Tim Maudlin's argument is for the vectoral nature of time. That is, that time begins, where we are, and moves forward and doesn't move backward. And this, proponent of time travel, who inspired at least one piece of poetics, right? That explores this idea of the birds leaving, Hamburg quickly in the early months of winter, and seems somehow like related to the piece that we're narrating and disclosing today. Has at least somewhat different argument regarding the nature of time and the potentiality of movement across, one could say, like, not singular, like vectoral trajectory, but perhaps open-ended polyvectoral possibilities. So forgot where I was. Seemed to have digressed a bit in this, and I've forgotten where I was in the discussion of this whole interesting history around the beer and bear gardens. But Andy, let me know. We talked, quite late. We had a long conversation over the phone. I'm not there in Milwaukee. I'm still here in Albuquerque, where we may or may not have an Oktoberfest, that may or may not involve, allowing the bears to feed on our pretzels and imbibe our beer. But oh, there we go. I keep having to remember to return to Mr. Rubioso. But we had a lengthy conversation over the phone, and he gave me information regarding all his history, and also this Zoo Brew Week in Milwaukee, and just in case anyone doesn't believe there is such a thing, I'll interrupt our viewing of. We seem to be frozen anyway in this. Oh no, I guess the ads are continuing, but I'll interrupt our viewing of Stan Brackage's version of Stan and Fred's. Fred, the Chicago Reader critic, not Fred the... See, Fiver's barking in the background again. He heard the word Fred. He heard the word Fred and he started barking. That's kind of funny. It's not that Fred I was talking about, Five. It's a different Fred. So I want to interrupt the viewing of Stan Brackage's version, Stan and Fred's version of the Beer and Bear Garden for just a minute to demonstrate that I'm not being disingenuous regarding Zoo Brew Week in Milwaukee, right? So, okay, so here's, now we're on a different page, and there it is, October 2023, and in fact, yes, it is indeed Zoo Brew Week in Milwaukee, and it says you can enjoy Pilsners near a penguin, or a lager by a lion. Zoo Brew is the Zoological Society's annual beer and food tasting event inside the Milwaukee County Zoo. There are 3 zones, etc., etc., etc. So, I guess one of the points is that experimental film, can be experimental in more than just a few ways, and inspire a lot of different events like that reach out to the world, right? In more than merely representational ways. So, for example, Andy's film, The Beer Garden, inspired a future past, right? Because it was made in 1991 and Andy's was made in 2002. So I don't want to say a future, but a future past experiment event, established by Fred Camper and Stan Brackage, right? That involved this experiment in the aesthetics of video versus of film form. Oh, here's a list of all of the different breweries that are participating in Zoo Brew Week in October in the Milwaukee Zoo. So you can get beers from all of these beer makers, which is pretty interesting. Okay, kind of go back to Mr. Rubioso. I think is coming to a close here. Well, we got about 4 or 5 seconds. See if I can get it to go. No? Okay, there we go. All right, Andy's film inspired, that experiment, right? Which was conducted 11 years before Andy made the film, in an interesting, so also involves space-time travel. And then 15 or 16 years later, inspired the creation of the Beer Garden, or Bear Garden. I think they changed the name to Bear Garden in the Milwaukee Zoo. And its annual, Oktoberfest celebration that goes back to the original idea of why Oktoberfest was first invented, right? To feed the bears and fatten them up in the winter, for the winter rather, in the fall for the winter, and I think we can go back to the film at this point. I just wanted to demonstrate that. There really is a Zoo Brew Week in the Milwaukee Zoo at the Beer and Bear Garden, and I'm not making any of this up. having determined that, I think we can go back to these commercials in Brackage's version of the Bear Garden, and I guess that's, although I digressed quite a bit in discussing it, I guess that's just about everything that I talked to Andy and Regina about. There's more information if you want more information about Fat Bear Week. You can find it on NPR. And this is the article here. This is Regina Seven Barber's article on, and I guess one of the Aaron avatars had something to do with this article as well. But talks about the reason these bears need to eat more at this time of year, and for those who are charitable and compassionate enough to want to help them out, I would redirect them to places like this, where you can share your goodwill and good fortune with these bears. I'm sure there are. I haven't looked it up, but I'm sure there are similar events occurring across the world, and perhaps particularly in Hamburg. Oh, and since we're running out of music here, I'll just close this out with my being silent, at least, during the rest of. There you go.